Hello there, everyone. My name is Richel Minga, and I'm from Section 2E 33C. And from the lesson Learning Activities across the Cognitive, Psychomotor, and Affective domains, I will be sharing new examples of learning activities under the Cognitive, Psychomotor, and Affective domains. I'll also point out the main verb used in each activity and explain why it fits that specific domain. So let's begin. For the cognitive domain or the understanding and thinking domain, here's the first activity. Students identify the key points in a teacher's short lecture. So what's the main verb there? It's identify. Yes, correct. So why cognitive? Because it requires recognizing and recalling information which is part of basic mental processing. So that's the explanation for activity 1. For the second activity, students classify different types of sentences into declarative, interrogative, exclamatory, and imperative. So what is the verb there? It's classify. Yes. So why cognitive? Because they sort and organize information based on criteria, which involves reasoning. For our activity 3, students predict the ending of a story after reading the first half. Again, students predict the ending of a story after reading the first half. So what is the verb there? Predict. Yes, predict. So why cognitive? Because they use logic and prior knowledge to form a conclusion. For activity 4, students explain how context clues help determine word meaning. Again, students explain how context clues help determine word meaning. So the verb there is explain. Yes. So why cognitive? Because it asks them to show understanding and make connections. So for number 5 activity, students solve a word problem using the steps discussed in class. Again, students solve a word problem using the steps discussed in class. So the verb there is solve. Yes, solve. Why cognitive? It involves applying knowledge to reach a logical answer. So that's my cognitive domain and my 5 examples. Let's now move on to the psychomotor domains, or the hands-on skill, or the performance or the movement domain. So for the first activity, students assemble a simple paper model related to the lesson, such as a diagram of the water cycle. So what is the verb there? Assemble. Yes, assemble. So why psychomotor? It uses coordination, manipulation, and step-by-step physical action. And then for the second activity, students record a short spoken paragraph using clear pronunciation. Again, students record a short spoken paragraph using clear pronunciation. So the verb there is record. So why psychomotor? Because it involves motor control of speech, organs, and technology use. Now for the third activity, students manipulate learning materials like flashcards or counters during an activity. So what is the verb there? Manipulate. Yes. Why? Why psychomotor? Because it requires hand movement and coordination. So for activity 4, students calibrate a simple measuring tool such as checking a ruler or using a timer correctly. So what is the verb there? Calibrate. Yes. So what is the explanation there? This involves precise physical adjustments and fine motor skills. And then for number 5 activity, students execute a short choreography for a class presentation. So what is the verb there? Execute. Yes. So what is the explanation there? Why psychomotor? Because it uses body coordination and controlled movement. Now, for our affective domain, which pertains to the attitude, behavior, and values, here's our first activity. Students appreciate a classmate's work by giving simple feedback. So what is the verb there? Appreciate. Yes. So why affective? Because it reflects positive reward and value for others' efforts. So that is my activity 1. And then for the second activity, students volunteer to lead a group activity. So what is the verb there? Volunteer. Yes. Why? Why effective? Because it shows willingness, initiative, and a sense of responsibility. For the third activity, students acknowledge the importance of honesty after a discussion on academic integrity. So what is the verb there? Acknowledge. Yes. So why effective? Because it shows internal acceptance of a value or principle. So for number 4 activity, students support a classmate who is struggling with an assignment. So the verb there is support. Yes. Why? Why effective? Because it shows empathy and positive interpersonal behavior. So for activity 5, students commit to a weekly habit that improves their study routine. Again, students commit to a weekly habit that improves their study routine. So the verb there is commit. Yes. So why? Why effective? Because it reflects long-term value, information, and personal discipline. In conclusion, the cognitive domain focuses on mental skills. The psychomotor domain centers on performance and movement, and the affective domain deals with attitudes and values. By designing activities in all 3 areas, we guide learners toward complete and balanced development. Thank you.